Regular meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, June 29th. Please stand for our invocation led by Pastor Denver Halsey, City Hope Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Jesus, we come before you this morning, and we just pause for just a second, and we just say thank you. We thank you for the gift of life. God, we thank you for the gift of love that you give us that's unconditional. God, and we come before you right now. We just pause and we say thank you. God, I pray for every family represented in this room, God, that your presence would just be here this morning, each and every day. God, as decisions are made, God, that your wisdom would just guide our hearts, and that the first thing from our lips and just our thought life, God, would be to honor you. God, we give you praise for everything that happens in this room. God, I pray for each and every council member here today. God, I pray for each and every family. God, that there would be peace, whatever's going on in their home life. God, that there would be peace in their family. And that just as decisions are made, God, we pray for this city and just the people in this city, God, that your spirit would just be covering this city, God. And we thank you. We give you praise. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, before we would take our seats, we would ask that we would observe a moment of silence in honor of the life, legacy, and hard work of two great Mobilians. I'm going to mention one, and then we will go to Councilor Gina Gregory to mention the other. And the first would be Miss Corrine Tart Wesley. About a year and a half ago, we honorarily renamed Adams Street in her honor in celebration of her 100th birthday, right before the pandemic. A long-time member of Hope Chapel AME Zion Church, longtime community supporter, really a mother of the community. She passed a couple of days ago, and her funeral services will be held on tomorrow. So I'd ask that we would have a moment of silence in honor of Miss Corrine Tart Wesley. Ms. Gregory?
And also, if you would remember the life and legacy of our former Congressman Sonny Callahan, whose funeral will be getting started momentarily. The mayor and others have gone to attend his funeral. The congressman served our district for many, many years, was very well known throughout the community as being a true gentleman and a statesman. So if you would today, just remember his family and all of his friends and loved ones in your prayers, in a silent prayer, if you would.
Thank you.
Roll call. President Manzi.
Here.
Vice President Small.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Daves.
Here.
Councilmember Rich.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Statement of rules.
Good morning.
Morning.
We first would ask that you turn off or silence all electronic devices before or upon entering the meeting. Any person desiring to address the council must sign in indicating the resolution, ordinance, appeal, or public hearing agenda item before entering the meeting. When addressing the council, we ask that you clearly state for the record both your name and your address. Any person desiring to speak to the council on a non-agenda item must contact the city clerk's office on the Thursday preceding the Tuesday in which you'd like to speak by 2 p.m. We ask that all of your commentary be pertinent to City of Mobile business. If that isn't the nature of your commentary, then you will not be allowed to address the council. Speakers are granted 3 minutes to make their presentation. A bell will sound to indicate the end of 2 minutes. It also would mean that you have 60 seconds to wrap up or conclude any of your presentation. That second bell that you hear indicates that all of your time has expired. And unfortunately, it's tasked upon me to remind you when that time has expired that your time is up and that you need to, unless there's questions of the council, expeditiously take your seat. When addressing the council, there's to be no individual or personal address to any council member. All of your statements are to be made to myself, who serves as chair, and then I will recognize any council member who wishes to respond. To maintain decorum, there will be no undue applause and/or public outcry allowed. Those are the rules for this particular meeting, and we are appreciative of your interest in your municipal government.
Approval of minutes of June 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Comments from the mayor's office.
Yeah, I'll be making comments on behalf of the mayor. As Councilwoman Gregory pointed out, the mayor is in attendance at Congressman Callahan's funeral. But I know everybody was very anxious to find out how the meeting with Big Ten mayors of Alabama went, who came into town with their police chiefs, public safety directors, and other professional support staff. Our main focus was how do we deal with gun violence in our communities that we're seeing. And so it was a very productive meeting, I would say. Chief Batiste was in attendance along with myself, Nitra Henderson, and Candace Cooksey. So we all have agreed that we must indeed support our law enforcement agencies, all of our respective police departments, and that those police departments need to be better in tune to continue to study best practices was one of the things that came out, but that most of the cities in Alabama, as we're seeing throughout the country, are seeing an increase in shootings this year versus the previous year. I don't think that comes as a shock to anyone. But our officers are facing new challenges in fighting this type of violent crime, and so there are a general consensus throughout all the cities to invest in technology, to invest in people, and to invest in the sustainability of our programs that are evidence-based and achieve the outcomes that we are looking for. And again, that is to reverse the trend of violent crime. We all agreed that you cannot arrest your way out of this particular problem. It's just not going to happen, that it is going to take community programming. We're going to have to deal with a generation of children in our classrooms today, as well as dealing with adults that are critical to our ability to address gun violence. Early intervention is key to helping children avoid a life of crime. One of the things we covered earlier that actually came out of this meeting with the chiefs is that we are seeing a growing trend of young people, young adults and teenagers that are carrying weapons for the concept of protecting themselves. And so they find themselves in an environment which they are threatened and do not feel safe. And we have got to change that environment by dealing with those that are causing harm, those that are involved in gun trafficking, and trying to encourage those gun owners, legal gun owners, to secure those weapons so they do not show up in our crime scenes. The group did tour the Gulf Coast Technology Center, and we discussed the technologies used here in Mobile, which many of them have seen some of it before, but there were many takeaways from that. We are sending a contingency up to Birmingham to look at some of their best practices in the use of technology. We discussed earlier using gunfire or gun detection technology along with surveillance camera systems to again identify those people that are involved in predatory behavior to make our environment safe where people do not feel the need to carry a handgun. Many of our cities are utilizing a lot of technology. Technology continues to emerge and it constantly shifts and changes. It's a very dynamic environment. There's a general consensus among the 10 cities that one of the greatest challenges in fighting gun crime in our communities is the ability of these offenders and shooters that are causing the most problem to get out on bail only to reoffend and end up in another violent crime situation. I think all of us see that happening here in Mobile as well as across the country. It was the consensus of all 10 mayors that they are going to be supportive of Aniah's bill, or Aniah's law now. And so if I'll remind you that Aniah's law was something that Mobile endeavored 3 years ago, back and forth to Montgomery for this particular legislation that prevents violent offenders that are Class A violent offenders that are likely to reoffend if released, and there are no conditions of release that could reasonably protect the public, that we can petition the judge to hold them without bail until trial. Incredibly important that we get the constitutional amendment. All 10 mayors are supportive of that. It finally came out of the House in the Senate with fully bipartisan support this year. We're very pleased to see that. It's unfortunate it took the Anaya Blanchard case, and I'll remind you that was the 19-year-old college Homewood student that was stalked, kidnapped, assaulted, and then murdered by somebody out on bail for a violent crime. So that support throughout the 10 cities and throughout the state, it will be on the constitutional amendment, will be on the ballot in the general election in November of next year. And so it was our decision that we will work together as the top 10 cities to really market the need to change this constitutional amendment. And I'll remind you that today law enforcement is dealing with 21st century threats with a constitution that was written in 1901. And we have got to adapt to the evolving changes that we're seeing in our community with high-capacity weapons and the deadliness of these weapons. With that, we discussed ARP earlier, and there's a short video that kind of outlines the initial ARP, and then we'll talk very briefly about the amendment because I know there's some people in the audience that are very much interested in the $58 million that is coming in from Treasury. So with that, I'll have Jordan will start this video for you.
Recently, the City of Mobile received about half of the $58.2 million that was allocated to us through the American Rescue Plan, or the ARP Act. As we talk about the best use for this funding, it is critical that we don't lose sight of the ARP's intended purpose. The nexus for this entire program is to provide relief for businesses and people, especially those in communities who have suffered disproportionately in our city due to COVID. Last week, my administration presented to the Mobile City Council the People First Plan, which includes projects and initiatives related to 4 of the funding categories set forth in the ARP guidelines. Those include premium pay for essential workers, addressing negative economic impacts, equity-focused services, and broadband infrastructure. Under the category of premium pay for essential workers, the People First Plan is proposing $5,000 bonuses to all full-time City of Mobile employees and $2,500 bonuses for all part-time city employees. Over the last 15 months, our employees adapted to meet unprecedented challenges and continued providing vital services to the citizens of Mobile. In addition to their regular duties, our police officers and firefighters took on new public health functions that have been critical throughout the pandemic. Our sanitation workers risked their own health to provide vital public services, and every one of our departments came together, adapted, and pressed forward to serve the citizens of Mobile every day. Under the category of addressing negative economic impact, we plan to make crucial funding available to small and disadvantaged businesses, as well as residents who need financial assistance with rent, utilities, fighting evictions, or buying their first home. This $12.5 million in funding will primarily move through the existing city programs. Despite progress in recent years, Mobile still needs more affordable housing options. Under the category of equity-focused services, we are hoping to expand some of the affordable housing programs we already have in place in Mobile. The People First Plan would set aside $16 million to acquire and build a new affordable housing apartment complex and use another $12 million to help convert vacant structures like the abandoned Gators building in downtown Mobile. Additional funds will help provide grants for replacing roofs, repairing plumbing, electrical, and HVAC for low to moderate income owners. The People First Plan would allocate $3 million to install broadband networking equipment in areas where residents do not currently have adequate access to high-speed internet. For some citizens, the lack of high-speed internet access makes it harder to apply for jobs or take advantage of remote learning opportunities. The details of our People First Plan have been submitted to members of the Mobile City Council for their consideration. As we work to serve the needs of our community, These funds will go towards important projects aimed at making a significant impact. We'll be submitting our plans for these funds to the federal government sometime before August 31st. Stay tuned for more information on how you can apply for assistance through one of these programs.
There is a slide up now to show some of the amendments. As stated earlier, the Biden administration late last Wednesday evening changed some of the guidance to allow some of the funding to be used to combat gun violence prevention as well as response. And so we went back in to look at the new guidance that came out, and on Thursday of last week, we were able to reallocate some of those funds in order to deal with a very significant problem that we all recognize is a problem throughout our communities, not just in Alabama, but throughout our country. The video that you just saw is a little bit dated because it did not include those changes. And so I wanted to point out that we did make those changes. $5.1 million was diverted from some of the other programs in order to deal directly with gun violence through gun detection technology, crime prevention through environmental design, which has to do a lot with LED lighting. The mayor has taken this out to the public. Again, these are just proposals. And a lot of the feedback we received yesterday from some of the nonprofits was the need for increased LED type lighting in neighborhoods and to make them feel safer. Community violence intervention programs. None of this is being, I guess, created by this funding. It's being enhanced by this funding. It's a lot of things that we are currently doing, and this gives us an opportunity to really expand our efforts and to prevent crime. To speak briefly on the eligibility of employees on the premium pay, we're still working through that eligibility and what that is, but in a basic sense, from March the 13th of 2020, if you worked anywhere from that day forward to March the 12th of 2021 during the COVID pandemic response, would be an eligible employee, be that part-time or full-time. So we're also looking at the possibility of engaging or applying a prorated amount to those employees that worked during that period that retired since. And so we are looking at that as well. And it does appear that all of those are acceptable expenditures under the guidance from the Biden administration. With that, it concludes my comments for the mayor.
Mr. President.
Mr. Vice President.
Mr. Barber, thank you so much for the update. Earlier in the committee meeting this morning, you had discussed about the opportunity that nonprofit groups can put in, such as a bid to see if their program will qualify for gun violence. And I do know it's one particular group in here now that have been advocating for help from the city. Could you explain to us just a little bit about what the administration is going to do and open up the opportunity for nonprofit groups to come and do a presentation as far as in gun violence to see exactly if their program is what would match up with what the administration would like, to go for?
Yes, sir. And of course, in the proposal, we set aside $2 million for our nonprofits that can public-private partnership in order to address the needs of our community, be it from victims and the advocacy of victims. Right away, there are a lot of these already are on performance contracts with the city. Such as the Penelope House and the Child Advocacy Center, who do an incredible amount of work that help us address crime and the crime victims. And so that money will be made available to put out through RFP for the 501c3s that do qualify under the federal guidelines to assist us in our response to crime prevention and victims advocacy, as well as any of the programs that deal directly with violent crime.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gregory?
just one other question. This is on the bonuses for employees. You had mentioned the timeline that they needed to be working. Will someone who is maybe looking at retiring in the very near future, like next week or the week after that, will they qualify to get the bonus as well?
Yes, ma'am. That question actually came all the way up to the mayor's office. I think there are people that are waiting to retire, but
Yeah, and I think they would like to get the bonus before they leave.
the date of retirement does not matter to us.
Okay.
If they retired the month after the pandemic, they would certainly at least qualify for that 1 month they were here. And so if they retired now, today, whenever it is passed by the city council, they would be eligible for the entire 12-month period that I described as the pandemic response period.
And then prorated based on how many months they were here?
That's correct. Some of them, Brad Christian comes to mind. He recently retired, but was here during the entire pandemic. Some retired within a month of the pandemic. And so, in order to be fair, we just prorated the $5,000 across 12 months and then just based it on how many months that they actually were here before they retired. So anybody, to Ms. Gregory's point, if they retired after March the 12th of 2021, they're actually eligible for the entire 12-month period.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that, too.
Any other questions of Chief of Staff Barber? Any other comments, Mr. Barber, from members of the mayor's staff?
No, sir, that concludes my comments. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Mr. Richardson?
In terms of the president, I'm going to do it later.
Adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Appeals. We have requests for a waiver of the noise ordinance on July 22nd, in Medal of Honor Park, July 18th in Langen Park, July 9th through the 11th in Cathedral Square, July 23rd in Cooper Riverside Park, July 3rd on Roosevelt Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Public hearings. Today is the public hearing to declare the structures at 102 North Pine Street, 1854 Calm Street, 5671 Bob Street, 5314 Noble Street, 5324 Noble Drive, 27 public nuisances and ordering them demolished. And today is the public hearing to fix the cost for demolition of structures at 2715 Betby Street, 2353 Hart Avenue, and 313 Lincoln Boulevard.
Is there anyone present that would like to speak during any of these public hearings? Yes, sir. If you could come down and state for the record both your name and your address and the property in which you'd like to participate in.
Sure. I live on Noble Drive South, and I believe it shows two properties, 5314.
I'm sorry, if you could give us your name
Sure.
and your address and the property that you're referencing.
Okay. It's Eric David DeMert. I live at 5270 Noble Drive South. And it's the same as the Noble. In fact, they're just two doors down, 5314 and the 5324. And my question to you guys is, I'm literally in contract to buy the property, but the lady has been unable to, she's been unable to present to the title company some of the documents that she needs to do a closing. And so, it's just been delayed to try to do a closing on it. But on the sheet of paper, it says demolish the buildings. And I'm just curious, can the property just be cleaned up? And can I leave the structures, if I do close with this lady?
Mr. David Doffenbach, if you could.
Good morning. I'm David Dockema, Deputy Director of Municipal Enforcement. Both the properties that we're discussing here are on one parcel owned by one owner, even though they're separate agenda items due to the fact that they're separate structures. Municipal Enforcement is recommending to demolish both of these structures, and that's what we have here before the council's agenda. We have been contacted by the property owner, and she has mentioned that she is in negotiation to sell the property, so it is consistent with what the gentleman's saying. However, if the council would like to table this for 30 days, 60 days, to give them a chance to close, so we can work with the new owner to repair these structures, that is something that we could consider.
I have a question. Is it your intention, once you purchase these properties, to move expeditiously to to restore the buildings?
Physically, expeditiously. In other words, it would be, I cannot sit here and say that it would be immediate. I mean, my goal and plan was not to hire a big construction crew to come in there and bulldoze it. You know, I have a small business on Halls Mill Road, chip solder glass. And so with me and my son and my employees, you know, our goal was to slowly clean it. You know, what are our intentions with it? I don't really have any intentions at this point. I happen to live 2 doors down from it, and it's just, you know, it's blight in the neighborhood, and it's, you know, we have a lot of transients back behind the Walmart in Tillman's Corner, so I've had a lot of issues with trying to scoop people out of there. But, you know, if it's something that you guys felt like needed to literally be mowed down and cleaned up, I mean, building structure and all, within X amount of days, I'm considering backing out of purchasing the property.
Well, the reason I ask is it doesn't make any sense for us to delay deciding what to do with these properties until you've acquired the properties if you don't have
Sure.
any intention to thereafter to quickly fix the properties up, the buildings up.
Good news is, the worse something looks prior to working on it and fixing it up, the better it looks when you're finished with it. You know, and it looks so terrible right now, it's almost like anything would be helpful. There's been so many transients living there in the past that the yard is just so filthy and grown up. The gentleman who owned it, he passed several years back, so it's, in fact, one of the structures even burned back behind the structure. It was a wood structure. But one of the structures is block, and it hasn't settled, and so, I don't know. So again, I mean, I just come to you guys just curious, if in other words, if I close, and then if I'm expected to demolish, have bulldozers and dump trucks in there within an X amount of days, I'm considering backing out of the purchase.
If we were to grant you 60 days to consummate the sale, at what point, how long of a time period would you think you'd need in order to bring these properties back up to par?
Well, I mean, I would imagine just being cleaned with some big dumpsters brought in there and, you know, with a little bit of paint and so forth, it would be a tremendous difference, like really soon, you know, but I mean, I don't necessarily, I mean, I can't say, I mean, it's just gonna look amazing in 30 days. All I can guarantee is that I will be working on it. I mean, I've been in contact with Miranda, you know, here in town, she's basically the officer overseeing it that represents the city of Mobile. And so, but I mean, I will be cleaning it. And Miranda also told me if I was to purchase, you know, what it is to work on a house or a structure, to clean it up, whatever, that gives me X amount of days. So, but it still hasn't closed. It should have already closed. It should have closed weeks ago, and it hasn't closed. So that's been one of the delays.
Hey, Mr. Dolphinball,
Well, it looks terrible.
I assume that the reason you're here is because there are structural difficulties with these buildings.
Yes, sir. One of them had a rear porch that the transients managed to catch on fire, and in fact, the owner requested it just be burned down, but you know, the chief in charge said he was unable to do that. So, but it didn't necessarily affect the primary structure, but it does look terrible. Like I say, the gentleman, he passed a few years back, so it really hasn't had any upkeep in several years.
Mr. President,
Mr. Vice President.
this is in District 4, and Mr. Williams is not here.
Right.
I think Mr. Dockenbach said that, you know, we could give him 60 days. I would suggest we can just give him 60 days, and if things are not up to, and for the resident to contact Mr. David Bach within 50 days to make sure that it is up to city standard. If it's not up to city standards, then 60 days come back before us, and we just go ahead and declare. And that would be my suggestion to this council.
That's fine.
I'm in agreement with that.
So within 50 days, you
Sure.
need to contact Mr. David Dockenbach and just see if it's up to city standard.
Good.
But if not, this council, you know, we'll probably just go ahead and declare it and everything.
Sure, sounds good. And I stay in contact with Miss Miranda too as well, so. yeah,
That's the
thank you.
key right there.
Yep, thank you. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, that's the king. Yeah, stay in
And-
contact with
The
him.
king, so, yeah,
And that would also give you enough time to get the deal done, because from what I'm hearing, you don't actually own it at this point.
correct. It's
So
been
I-
in contract for, what, a month and a half? And Gerard, who works for the city, is also another friend of mine, and he specifically told me, he said, do not work on it, do not invest any
Right.
money into it until
Right.
you own it.
Well,
So,
that's some great
you know,
advice.
That's what I'm trying to do. But,
All right.
Yeah, he's a friend. Thanks.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. President, just to
Yes,
follow
sir.
up, municipal enforcement, if this is held over for 60 days, what we would do is definitely wait for some follow-up from the potential owner. But if the closing of the property, the sale happens, we will be able to give him time to make the repairs. But what we're looking for is a construction plan, a scope of what he's going to do for both of the structures. And if he decides one's going to be demolition and one's a secure, that's fine, that's great. But we want to give him a chance to get a scope of the project, apply for the building permits, and once those permits are issued, then he would be able to go through and begin the repairs of these structures.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to, yes, sir, if you would, come give us your name and address and the
Okay, name
property
would
that
be
you
Samuel Morris. I stay at 802 McNeil Avenue. The property that I'm here about is 313 Lincoln Boulevard, West Mobile area. It was tore down probably about, let's say about 2 months ago. I received this in the mail of a price of $5,700. I purchased that price last year, I'm thinking around maybe June, July. I was in contact with a guy, Mr. Gordon Bauer. The house that I'm talking about falls under the Blighton program. At that particular time, I was already in the process of remodeling another property in the Crichton area, which I'm through with that now. About 2 months ago, I got a call saying that they were over there tearing the property down. I don't think that I was given enough time for us to do something with the property. $5,700. I've had a couple of properties that I've had tore down or whatever, $5,700. I just think that that is an excessive price. I could have got that done myself for way cheaper. So basically what I'm saying is, do I have to pay this $5,700? Is there some kind of way that I can contest this? If not, how do I pay it? What's the plan? Do I pay it every year on my taxes on the property, or how does that go?
Mr. Doffenbach?
And if I remember correctly, this is the 313 Lincoln?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and we had discussion about this in pre-council, yes. This is the property where the house was burned and open to the public for several years. And yes, the owner did make some applications to the city for grants, however, that did not pan out. There was some problems with that process, and it did not get completed. So the city municipal enforcement was obligated to move forward with the demolition of the structure. And yes, we do go through competitive bids. The lowest bid was selected, which is what we have here. There's a $200 admin fee added to it, and that is the costs that are before council. The actual demolition cost plus $200 of admin fee.
Mr. Doggenbaugh, you can probably answer the gentleman's question also about setting up some sort of a payment schedule.
If the costs are fixed here today, the city of Mobile will send the owner of record an invoice to pay that, the cost, the fixed cost. If that is not done, then eventually, yes, there could be a lien foreclosure action down the road, or these costs could be attached to the property through property taxes. But we definitely, once you get the invoice, reach out to the city, the Treasury Department, and make settlement on the bill.
Okay.
I have a question of.
Ms. Rich?
Thank you. Did you receive the letter in the mail that the council was going to declare it as a nuisance and order it secured or demolished, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you address us at that time about?
This is my first time coming here. When
But
I
you
was
did
in
get the letter that,
the letter?
yeah, the
Yeah, I
initial
did.
letter.
I
that-
addressed a letter to Mr. Gordon Bauer. like I said, I was going back and forth with him about the property falling under the blighting program. So when I'm in communication with him, I'm thinking that it's some type of hold being put on it, or, you know, by me being in communication, I had cleaned the property up. It was well overgrown. So I'm thinking I'm in good standing with whoever I was talking to. Obviously, I wasn't.
Are you the owner now?
Yes, ma'am.
Of the property? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Morris, we thank you for coming down. If you would follow the guidance given to you by Mr. Doffenbach, once you receive that invoice,
Okay.
reach out to City Treasury, and I'm hopeful that they'll be able to enlighten you relative to any payment plans.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Also, Mr. Morris, you probably want to get with Mr. Doffenbach also. I know you said that the price was very high. The city's supposed to go out and get bids. So ask Mr. Doffenbach to show you all the bids, but we're supposed to go with the lowest bid of all three and everything.
Okay.
So make sure you ask.
So that was the lowest bid?
Yes,
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
Mr. Doffenbach to show it to you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, too, this had, I think, 2 different structures, which just increased the cost. That's what David was telling us about in our pre-conference meeting. So, yeah, I'm sure he'll be happy to show you what the bids were and what they came back.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak during any of these public hearings? If not, the public hearings are closed.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Reggie Hill.
Wow, Reggie is going to miss. It's the first one in a long time.
Levy King.
Greetings, Council. Levy King, 6016 Magnolia Place East, Mobile 36608. This morning, as I represent the coalition, Ms. Teresa Bettis, I forego my speaking opportunity and to allow Ms. Teresa Bettis to speak in my place this morning.
Now, Mr. King, she's on the agenda as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, she is. When I requested to be on the actual agenda to speak,
Yes, sir.
her and I had a conversation on yesterday and decided to allow her to speak for the coalition.
Sound like a winner.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Timothy Hollis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Timothy Hollis, 1924 Seal Street, 36617. This is my 4th time coming down here. Well, my 4th time contacting the city, 2 times via 311, 1 time on the last Zoom council meeting, and now I'm here in the flesh to speak on the abuse of yard signs being posted all around our city. We know we're in an election. We know we want candidates to get their voices and their names out there. But there's a way to go about it, and there's a way to do it. And if we're going to do it, it should be in decency and in order. Not in the right-of-ways, not piled up on stop signs. I have to pull out in some areas in District 1, almost into the next intersection before I can see what's coming east or west or north or south. Because why? Everybody's fighting to have their name out. That's okay. Get out and do the work. Knock on the doors. But don't fill up the right-of-ways. It's a hazard to everyone. So I probably would be stepping over my head to think that our administration would police that, because we're too busy to worry about policing other things. You know, we don't even have enough workers to work for, you know, the trash department. We don't even have enough workers to drive the street sweeper. So I know we don't have enough workers to police all 7 districts for illegal yard signs. Secondly, I'm here to speak about parks. I emailed our mayor after talking to him in the atrium. I emailed his assistant, and I emailed our parks director, and I emailed our council rep. I only got a reply from my council rep, which is District 1, Mr. Richardson. Policies for use of facilities in MPRD. Greetings, and this was sent last Thursday after I signed up to be on the agenda. I have spoken with a few of you on the issues that are affecting citizens in the Tomanville community. I would like to know the current policy that regulates the rules and guidelines for attending summer programs. I've also heard that there were community meetings held in place that led to current decisions. Is there any data available that shows us how communities polled for these changes? Secondly, there are several inconsistencies with construction being done at Figures Park. Why would the city wait until football season to start construction at this venue? We all know that football is one of the most important sports in this city. The Tomanville Rattlers, formerly Tomanville Titans, have their home games in this park and are in jeopardy of not having the ability to play their max potential of home games. The concession area pays for security and officials, and without the concession area, we can't afford to play at home. Also, can someone present the policy where it states that football programs must pay a rental fee to use the concession areas? I still have not yet to receive a reply. And, anything at this point, I don't think will be acceptable because nobody has any true care to answer these questions before they're brought to the forefront. 3 minutes is definitely not enough time in our city, and I don't know when we made this decision, but we need to go back to 5.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richardson.
Mr. Hollis did send me a copy of what he just read, and I did send him a reply that all of those issues are administrative in nature. It's not under the auspices of the council. That's the mayor's response. All of those issues falls under the mayor, and I couldn't give him a response as to why any of that was happening. As a matter of fact, the law forbids us from giving instructions to administrative employees. And there are those waiting on such things to happen so we can get put away from this council. I'm not saying nothing to administrative employees. So I don't have no answer other than it is the mayor's responsibility.
Yes, sir, Mr. Richardson. Yes, ma'am.
Darlene Martin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Darlene Martin, 2411 Cross Street, Mobile, Alabama, 36610 in Africatown. I as well have elected to let Teresa Bettis speak on my behalf. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Olenifer Burrell.
Greetings.
Good morning.
My name is Olenifer Burrell, and I'm a native and lifelong resident of Mobile, Alabama. I'm here on behalf of Involved Communities, South Bay Apartment 600 South Washington Avenue, in particular 649 New Jersey Street location in District 2, where I serve as the regional manager. I'm here responding to allegations made publicly at the prior City Council meeting on June 8th concerning South Bay Apartments and the issue with trash in our dumpsters. I have brought pictures and documentation showing that we have and are addressing concerns made by the resident in the neighborhood adjacent to the property. I feel this matter has become personal and harassing. I would like to mention that I was the property manager of this same location from 1996 to 2002. Then as well as now, I have always taken pride in the curb appeal of the property. I arrived back to the company as the regional manager in May 2018. During that time, I addressed issues that was reported regarding trash and dumpsters. New structures were completed to each dumpster at the 649 location where the alleged trash was reported after my arrival in 2018. In addition to currently, new dumpster gates are being installed as we speak. We are maintaining to the best of our ability to ensure a clean and safe business, as well as still making repairs from the last storm which impacted our city late last year. Although the repairs were delayed, we did as much as we could to ensure our dumpsters are serviced and clean. We are not responsible for trash or litter going into neighboring yards. I refute this complaint because the area is open and we have no control over others littering from their cars or walking down the streets. It is unfair for our apartment community to be blamed for trash entering neighborhood yards when the area is open and it could be anyone. Our dumpsters are open to anyone coming onto our property to dispose of their items from furniture to their household rubbish. We have made many adjustments since the constant reporting of us to the city, from staff working on weekends to myself staking out another dumpster just to limit the use of the dumpster in the area and to catch any flying litter. In my staking, I wanted to see how much litter was coming from the dumpster in the neighboring yard. I did not see any. Since being mentioned at the council meeting, we have completed dumpster checks each day and sent emails with pictures to the city. Many letters are always being sent to our residents to remind them that our apartment community is decent, safe, and sanitary. I even joined in the ranks with my staff to ensure grounds were serviced to prevent any future complaints. Like any other establishment and apartment communities in the city of Mobile, constant cleanups and interior and exterior are always necessary. My presence here this morning is to respond and reassure the city we are a business who takes pride in presentation and providing a clean and safe home to all residents. We are committed and involved in providing a home atmosphere while maintaining community integrity. To this end, we have come to reassure and inform to strengthen our reputation and character. If there are questions or concerns regarding South Bay Apartments at any time, please do not hesitate to contact me. Again, my name is Olenifer Burrell, and I'm the regional manager of the property, and my contact number is 334-954-4458. Thanks again for the opportunity to address your panel, and good day.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Burrell, I am appreciative of you coming down and giving us your perspective of these allegations.
Yes, sir.
About 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a resident that came, and including tears, saying that the trash and things of that nature from your apartment complex was constantly going over into her property. And I've spent an inordinate amount of time over the last 3 or 4 years with this particular resident. I'm pleased that you came down to set the record straight.
Yes,
and I'm also pleased to hear of all the improvements that you all are making. I see the improvements on the outside, the work that you all are doing in that regard. So thank you for coming down today.
Yes, sir.
It's really appreciated.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Teresa Bettis.
Good morning to the council.
Good morning.
Morning.
Bring this down. Teresa Bettis to the council. My name is Teresa Bettis. The address is 602 Bel Air Boulevard, Mobile, Alabama, 36606. This morning, I'm speaking as a representative and member of the South Alabama Economic Roundtable. The South Alabama Economic Roundtable is a coalition of community leaders from the business, for-profit, and nonprofit and faith-based communities. The coalition is aware that the city has been awarded $58.1 million under the President Biden's COVID relief package, the American Rescue Plan. President Biden has written into law specific uses for the funding, specifically requiring advancing equity, especially for those who have been historically underserved, marginalized, and adversely affected by persistent poverty and inequality. The president, moreover, has explicitly written into the law for this funding a mandate of equity. His executive order clearly identifies equity as the consistent and systemic, fair, just, and impartial treatment of all individuals, including individuals who belong to underserved communities, such as communities that have been denied such treatment, such as Black, Latino, Indigenous, and Native American persons, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders, and other persons of color, members of religious communities, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender persons, and persons with disabilities, and persons who live in rural areas, and those otherwise adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality. The Roundtable has grave concerns regarding the following: the lack of transparency to the Mobile community, the speed of which this budget's development has occurred that has not been proven necessary, the lack of engagement and input from those for whom the monies are designated to serve the community, and the most egregious of all, The proposed uses of the plan monies are not in alignment with the President's executive order. We respectfully request a 4-week delay before voting on a final budget allocating the funds from the plan. The delay of the vote would allow adequate time for the roundtable to work with the City Council and administration under the mayor, and most importantly, the community to identify and address community priorities and to assure that the monies are best distributed for the most significant impact in the spirit of the executive order. In inclusion, the council serving as the people's legislative body with the power to approve the final budget plan put forth by the city administration under the mayor. The roundtable wants to assure, as does the council, that the community has been involved and is primarily vested and comfortable with the proposed expenditures as mandated under the President's executive order. Thank you for your time today. All right. Any questions?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Bettis, and to all the members of the roundtable, and moreover to the citizens of the city of Mobile. I think there are a couple of key points that need to be highlighted. Number one, the People First plan is exactly that. It's the mayor's plan. He has presented to us how he and his administration would want to utilize the resources allocated from the American Rescue Plan. It doesn't become the city's plan until we pass it. And I am not in favor of a rushed proposition in which we just rush to approve something. Certainly having public engagement is important, and we have enough time, even with the deadlines, to do so. So I want to assure you and assure citizens of the community that there will be opportunities for them, including now. Mm-hmm. If you have an idea, I know we got a request for a meeting over the weekend, wasn't quite able to accommodate that, but we have sufficient enough time to listen to any and all ideas that might be applicable relative to these funds. Until it passes with 5 votes of this council, it won't be the city's plan. Now, there's some great aspects of the People's First plan, but there are also some other ideas that others might have that could really make it an even better plan. And so I'm appreciative of your time today, the time that we've heard from members of the roundtable. And I want to say on behalf of this council that our eyes are open, our ears are open. This is a unique opportunity.
Yes, it is.
I don't know of any other circumstance in which we would have this level of federal influx relative to resources. It would probably take another global pandemic. So we ought to make certain that we leverage resources and we get the most bang for the buck, and that the communities in which it was intended to have has as much representation as possible. We can do some transformative things with this. Mm-hmm. And so I'd ask that you stay engaged. Let's have those meetings. If there are other groups that are interested, reach out to us, reach out to the administration so that we can make this the strongest plan that we can make it.
Thank you for your commitment, and we will be reaching out to you.
Sounds good. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Davis.
If I could just make a few clarifications. What was presented to us 2 weeks ago was the administration's proposal. There has been nothing placed on our agenda yet. Mm-hmm. We would have to have something placed on our agenda in order to take action, and then that item would be placed on our agenda. Anyone that wants to can come speak to that item when it appears on our agenda. It's automatically carried over a week. Many times on issues such as this, where there's interest, it gets carried over for more than a week, or carried over for a week and then carried over again. The deadline for us is August 13th. The City Council must act by August 13th in order to give the administration time to meet the deadline set by the federal government. And the penalty for not meeting the deadline set by the federal government is you lose the money. So we've got to act by August 13th. So I would just urge anybody who has opinions on how the money ought to be spent to, to get their ideas in as quickly as possible.
Yes, and if it's possible for the council or the administration, it's our understanding that by the 31st, what needs to be submitted is that the federal government needs to know which buckets you guys plan to spend that money out of. That we don't necessarily have to have the budget passed and approved by the 31st, but the federal government needs to know where the intent for the money is to be spent. So I would think that we would take that time just to make sure, because it is historical. We may never have this opportunity again, and there are several communities here in Mobile who have been historically disadvantaged. And it's an opportunity to change it and set a foundation to create a legacy that is true equity. And you cannot have equity without transparency. And so we need more transparency and more discussion. If it's the people's plan, let's hear from the people. Let's hear from them. And there are studies that have already been done. Housing Authority had two great plans, one for the R.V. Taylor area, one for the Roger Williams area. Those are shovel-ready projects. You already done it, and they were by the community. Councilman Smalls knows that, Councilman Richardson and Manzi. You all know that because they've been in those areas. The community was brought together. So there's some stuff to work with. But I really feel like in the spirit of this executive order, you have to hear from the very people that this money is intended for, a portion of it anyway, a great portion of it. So we thank you for your commitment, that you will work with us. The Alabama Economic Roundtable group will be calling upon each of you all, and we want to host these community forums and get information, and let's have a inclusive discussion about how to spend this $58 million so that it does really impact and improve the lives for the folk that it's intended for. Thank you for your time.
Mr. President.
Mr. Vice President, and then Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Manzi. And if I'm wrong, correct me, Chief Barber and Mr. Days, but I think the mayor was really interested this morning hearing from the citizens and hear exactly, what they have, their thoughts about it and their ideas. I think he stressed that this morning meeting. My question is to Mr. Days, are we planning on having another committee meeting where the public will be able to talk and have public inputs on it?
Well, I mean, it's up to the city council. I don't know, council, we'll have to see how the council feels about it.
I say yes.
I think that would be important, and let's schedule it at a time that's not at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
2 o'clock.
After work would be better if possible.
The evening.
At 6 o'clock, at least 6 o'clock in the evening, so that because a lot of the people that we're talking about impacting are working, and they won't be able to take off work at 2 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning to come and have their concerns heard.
Mr. Richardson.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, first of all, I foresee once this matter is placed on our agenda, I foresee a hearing, a time set for the public to come express themselves. And Ms. Bettis, you and your group are professionals, especially when it comes down to housing. Mm-hmm. So it needs to go beyond a discussion. You need to submit a proposal. Submit a proposal.
We will do that.
State what you're going to do and how much it's going to cost. Because if not, it's just, people come down and they just talk. Submit a proposal. And then, because we got a bucket with $58 million in it, mm-hmm. we can move it to where we need. A plan had been set, and then they came back and said, we want a component dealing with crime. And that you can use some of that $58 million for that, so that it rushed back. And so I'm saying we can readjust. I see people in here today who can help us with the crime issue. But you can't be talking about crime. Submit a proposal. submit a proposal. And we look at that proposal, and we look at what the mayor said he's gonna do for crime, we look at what you all gonna do for crime, and we're gonna see what is best for all of the people. That's what we're gonna be looking for. But we're gonna need you all to submit a proposal stating what it is and how you can do something about what you see. So that's what we're going to be looking for.
Thank you, and that is the plan.
Yes.
Mr. President, if I could just, I'm sorry, I just want to commend Mr. Richardson for what he said. We've got a short period of time. The quicker we can get to specifics, the more likely it is we can accomplish what everyone wants. We need to move away, and I'm not accusing you, Ms. Bettis, of this. And I'm not even speaking to you, I'm speaking to everybody. What we need are proposals. What it is you want to do, what it is you think we ought to do, how much it's going to cost, who it's going to benefit, that kind of thing. Because it's going to be a lot easier to deal with specific proposals than generalizations in a short period of time.
Sure, thank you.
If I could comment.
Mr. President.
I heard Ms. Rich, and then we'll go to Ms. Gregory.
I'll be brief. Ms. Bettis, thank you so much for coming down and addressing us. Since you're aware of the timeline, because we certainly want to affect the ability to make some good changes with this windfall. That's the way I look at it. And it is a stunning amount of money coming in from the federal government. It's just the willingness to understand that deadline. So, you know, we've got something in, we were told August 13th to give the administration the time so that when they present the paperwork up to the feds, it passed muster, and then the funds, you know, can stay put and we can start using them. But again, I'll emphasize the need for clarity from you said there were 3 groups, and I might not be familiar with all of them, but if they will outline and get us this information, not to rush them necessarily, but to make sure that it's well spelled out. Because I think what the element is that we have these buckets and we have different priorities and amounts we would like to see go into each of them. So that's your opportunity to spell that out for all of us.
And it's
to
actually,
the public at large to get their support as
and
well.
it's actually a collaborative, Councilwoman Rich, so it's more than 3 groups, so,
Okay,
but it's
well,
a
I
collaborative.
thought you said there were,
Yes.
I get it. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Ms. Gregory?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Ms. Bettis, for coming. We really appreciate it. And just to, I guess, reiterate what some of my colleagues have said, we definitely would like to get those specifics. And once you have those, what the city will be doing, as I understand it, will be taking, you know, RFPs. So obviously, if you have that together, then you are better able to apply. And then the city will need to, of course, let everybody know what exactly they are looking for, how to apply, when to apply, and all those kinds of things. So we appreciate all of your efforts, and we'll be looking forward to hearing from you all and what you have to say and to suggest. And probably also, because we talked about the gun violence bucket of money this morning, so any of the areas, whether you're looking at, whether it's rental assistance, home loans, the housing portion, or if it's directed at education and prevention of, you know, gun violence, working with the school system, identifying at-risk children, whatever the category is, you know, just separate those out.
Sure.
Because, you know, we'll be looking to do our research and homework on all of those. But again, thank you all for coming, and we appreciate your being a part of this.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richardson?
I want to ask someone in the administration whether or not the American Rescue Plan is on the city's website. Because the public can't access it. We can't hide the plan, put the plan up. No, I'm asking.
Well, no.
I'm asking, is it on the
Mr.
city's
President,
website?
I don't know what he's asking, but if we're talking about the actual guidance, we can put it up. If we're talking about what we're doing, the proposal, we can put it up. I just don't understand. I'm asking for clarity.
The same thing he sent to us, is it on the website?
Right. So the video is being updated. That's right. And if you're talking about the actual proposal, it's public.
Yeah,
We're
the
going to update
proposal.
it. Yes, yes,
It's on the website?
yes.
That's all I'm saying. Because the people are not gonna know what to do if we don't make it available to them. Right now, we're talking, not only to you all, we're talking to the general public, to the region. And they need to know what to do. I don't want them to say, well, I can't make no recommendation because I don't know what the plan is. Go to the city's website.
So it is being updated. It is being updated to be.
With the gun shifting.
Right,
of
right.
things.
What you have is not there yet, but it is being updated.
But something, the original one that he gave out should be up there.
The original one,
It's got to be updated.
right.
Needs to be
Okay.
updated, so it's all
But
the same.
it's going to be on the city's website. And so for those who would like to submit a proposal, whatever you submit to the mayor, submit a copy to the council. CC us.
So I also want to make one point of clarity, and I think Councilman Rich alluded to this. We do have to deal with specificity when we turn in on the 31st. The guidance is consistently being updated. We cannot just give generalities when we do that. So we do have to submit specificity. And more importantly, if you are going to allocate funding when you do, you will have to be able to do that so we move forward quickly. So to the extent the mayor talked about public input, this is that time. I mean, we're going through the process. And I think as this president so aptly stated, there is nothing on the agenda yet. We're not rushing anything. The 4 weeks that Ms. Bettis has asked for is more than doable because we will be able to go through this process, answer questions, take public input, and even after the process, after you all have voted, there'll be an RFP process for the general public to participate in what is being spent where and how it's being distributed.
So just let it be known from this moment forward, this isn't a hidden process. There will be transparency. The public is invited to become as engaged as they feel they need to be engaged. This will be a plan that is inclusive, and until we have reached that level of inclusivity, again, nothing's on the agenda. If you have a nonprofit, if you have an organization, if you're part of this roundtable or that roundtable, if you want to see something in your particular community, this is the time to be proactive and let us know what your thoughts are. Let's not wait until it's passed, and then we've got the Monday morning quarterbacks saying what we coulda, woulda, and shoulda. The plan will be updated today. This is Mayor Stimson's vision. If you have a vision that's divergent of this one, let us know what it is. We're telling you as clearly and as simply as we can that we're interested and we want the engagement. This is not being done under the cloak of secrecy. Everybody knows that the city is getting $58 million. So if you have a plan, submit the plan, and let's go from there.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gregg.
and this is for Director Barber or Mr. Woods, either one, is there a point person that anyone should contact in the administration if they have questions, or maybe someone who they should submit a plan to, just to get the ball rolling?
So I would say right now, those submissions will come to the council.
Oh.
I mean, they're going to go to you all because we're going to put a proposal on the agenda and work hand in hand with the council to go through the process.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, if you want to reach members of the council, it's council 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Don't worry about all these names. Council 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or you're going to send it to the city clerk.
Right.
City clerk
Yes, that's
at cityofmobile.org. We're not running, we're not hiding. Send us the information.
The other thing, if I could ask the administration to put up, there is a summary on this act that says exactly what qualifies, that besides our plan, that might be a good slide or two to put up to educate people who want to see what priorities the city has, and maybe they want the shift of priorities. So that would be good, because someone sitting down that doesn't know, it doesn't qualify at all, isn't they're going to be upset, you know, that they communicated, but it was something that would not qualify.
So you're referring to the summary we provided council on
Yes.
top of the...
Yes, that it basically outlines what your buckets are, what they can consist of.
Sure.
I think that would be good to be up there, too. Great.
And Ms. McAvoy, in the spirit of true transparency, if you could issue a press release to all media outlets letting them know the guidance that Mr. Woods just gave relative to proposals and plans to be submitted to the council with the city clerk's email and our email if necessary, because we don't want it to be said that the public was not an integral and most integral part of this process. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The clerk might include our chief of staff with these recommendations, so the administration is in the loop.
Absolutely. I'm for full transparency. Send it to
Yeah,
everybody.
That's good. We need to all be
So, Beth,
hearing the same time.
you were saying that the city clerk is our chief of staff?
No. I'm saying the mayor's chief of
I
staff.
am saying, according to the Zogby Act, the city clerk is our chief of staff.
Right, I get that, but I'm
Just wanna
asking
get
that
that in.
when someone communicates with us to our clerk's office, that it also go to the administration, and it
That's
should
fine.
be Chief of Staff Barber.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk?
CIP resolutions.
1 second. Did Challenge sign up to speak? Did you want to speak, or I thought you was going to speak, or not?
It's a public hearing.
Okay. What is it?
We already had public hearings.
We've already had the public hearing, yeah.
No, it's about the park.
Yeah, so she come speak, yeah, about the park and everything.
That's,
We're just setting a public hearing.
Yeah,
We just
she
said
just
the
said the
public
public
hearing.
hearing.
the call for
You just
public
want to
hearing.
wait until, okay, all right.
July
All
20th.
right,
So
thank you.
that's in 3 weeks, right? Whenever we're calling.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
CIP resolutions held over. 01473, authorize a cooperative agreement with ALDOT for traffic signal maintenance and operation program. 01474, authorize a purchase and sale agreement and accept deed for approximately 31 acres located along Dolphin Island Parkway in Mobile Bay.
So move.
Second?
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Vice President?
Yeah, speaking on the CIP resolution 01-474, that is authorizing purchase and sales agreement with malls of 31 acres that's located off of Dolphin Island Parkway. As you all remember, a couple of years ago, we was talking about putting a beach out on Dolphin Island Parkway. This right here is a connectivity of Perch Creek plan, which is several parts on DIPN, and they're all going to have a connectivity along with the Greenway Initiative. This is a very exciting project that is going to go forth. Not too sure exactly when it's going to be officially kicked off to go ahead and start revitalizing this particular area. But this is not only just great news for DIP or District 3, this is great news for the city of Mobile to attract more access to water. Had a community meeting last Tuesday, and one of the main things that was talked about on that meeting, was connectivity to the water by land and by boat. And this right here is a great start, and having citizens to have connectivity to reach the water. And again, looking forward for this being passed today, and looking forward for the administration to create more plans to make this a reality very soon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Vice President?
I
Mr.
would,
Richardson?
I would like to ask Councilman Small, is there going to be a component where the public can fish right now? They used to fish behind the convention center. They cut everything out on fishing. Now they have to go somewhere else to fish. Will that be a component for the public to fish?
Mr. Richardson, like I had stated earlier, that the plans are still in the making. And believe it or not only that we are about to purchase this 31 acres, also remember that we have the Bay property that we also purchased from South Alabama. So the issue is really working with the administration to make sure that we can probably, build a pier, et cetera, for the citizens to have access to fish, which we do have a pier at Arlington Park, but it's not as deep as some citizens want, at all. But again, there's something we'll have to work with the administration to get this done in reality. But like I say, years ago, when it was brought to us, the first thing I was, thinking about was the beach access. And then, but yeah, that could be something that, the administration and the city can look at later on, is the pier.
Madam City Clerk? Oh, okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Items passed.
Resolutions held over. 31480, authorized grant application to the U.S. Department of Justice for the fiscal year 21 Bulletproof Vest Partnership.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Consent resolutions being introduced for the first time. 37481 through 21503.
Yeah, motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of consent resolution 37-481 through 21-503.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
37481, 482, and 483 are recommending approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer table wine off-premises only license for Griffith's Service Station on Government Street, for issuance of a special events retail license to Lit Cigar Lounge for the 4th of July celebration in Cooper Riverside Park, and for issuance of a special events retail license to Lit Cigar Lounge, Inc. for Saturdays at the Coop on July 3rd. 40, 484, 485, 687, 88 are declaring the structures at 102 North.
I think we need to take 487, 488 separately.
Oh, we're taking those there. Okay. Okay. So 40, 484, 85, and 86 are declaring the structures at 102 North Pine Street, 1854 Combs Street, and 5671 Bob Street public nuisances and ordering them demolished. 40, 489, 490, 491 are fixing the cost of demolition of structures at 2715 Betby Street, 2353 Hart Avenue, and 313 Lincoln Boulevard. 58492, declare weeds noxious, group 1615. 60, 493, and 494 are determining appropriations to Africatown Community Development Corporation and Detente Square Neighborhood Association serve public purposes and approve payment. 21502 and 503 are authorizing contracts with Dennis McGrew and Caleb Moran for services as election specialists for the municipal election.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items passed.
40, 487, and 488 are declaring the structures at 5314 Noble Drive and 5324 Noble Drive are public nuisances and ordering them demolished.
Move delay over 60 days.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolutions being introduced for the first time, 08495 through 6500.
By council rules, each resolution will be laid over for 1 week.
Call for public hearings, 41501. Call for public hearing to consider adding a playground in Walsh Park, scheduled July 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Announcements.
Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like I said, as stated earlier, we had a district meeting on last Tuesday. The mayor and administration had came out, and believe it or not, because of the bad weather, we still had just about a house full of people on last Tuesday. I'd like to thank all the citizens for coming out. It's been over a year since we had a community meeting, but it was great to see a lot of faces I haven't seen in over a year and a half. Again, I do like to thank, the administration for coming out, and also I'd like to thank the Riverside Baptist Church and the pastor there for opening up their doors to accepting us on last Tuesday. Also, on last Tuesday, I had mentioned in council meeting that be looking to do a job fair within the city of Mobile for Public Works. And I talked to my colleagues, and pretty much we all in agreement to sponsor a job fair. I missed a call from the personnel board while in meeting. I tried to return a phone call, but tentatively we are looking to have the job fair on July the 12th, which is a Monday at the Ville Center. Once we get confirmation, the council will release that information to the general public. Again, the council begin, receiving a lot of phone calls, with city services, and one of the main issues is that a lack of employees. So we're trying our best to try to fulfill those needed areas where we can make sure that city services continue. And I'd like to wish everyone in the city of Mobile a happy and safe 4th of July. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Daves.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be a District 5 community meeting 2 weeks from today, July 13th, at 6 o'clock p.m. at Westminster Presbyterian Church, which is located at the corner of Airport Boulevard and Sage Avenue. That's 2 weeks from today, July 13. The mayor has been invited, along with Public Services Director DeLapp and Public Safety Director Batiste. This coming Sunday is the anniversary of our country's birth. I think it's important to reflect that what happened was we had a country that decided that it was going to go to war to protect its liberty. And at that time, we were one of the weakest nations in the world. Well, we weren't even a nation. We were one of the weakest political organizations, 13 separate political organizations in the world. And we went up against the strongest military power on the face of the planet. There was really very little chance we would win that war. But we did. We ended up victorious. And the people, the men and women who delivered that victory to us, delivered the liberty that we've enjoyed in the ensuing years, went into it without any real expectation that they would be successful. But they were willing to hazard everything they had, their lives and their fortunes, on that victory. And strangely enough, they succeeded. The country we created is not perfect. It wasn't perfect when it was created. It isn't perfect today. But what it did was, what our revolution did was, it started, but before our revolution, there were just princes and kingdoms and emperors. Representative government in the modern era began with our revolution. It's not been perfected. There are many people that were left behind in the past. There are people that are left behind today. But what those individuals started back on that first July 4th has enriched the lives of numberless of our citizens and individuals across the world. Today, for reflection and honor for those people who brought that to us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Daves. Ms. Rich.
You said Rich or Richardson?
Rich. Miss Rich.
Thank you very much.
His best
I
class
want to
to
make
Rich.
sure.
I am not rich, man.
Okay. I just want to remind people about the Mobile Fire Rescue Department's initiative for putting in smoke detectors. The number to call is 251-208-7484. It's a great program. Try to take advantage of it. I actually went door to door in the past and talked to residents who had this put in, and it's really good, especially senior citizens who maybe don't have the agility to get up to put the smoke detector up. Give the number a call, 251-208-7484. It could save your life. The other thing is, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy 4th of July as well. At Cooper Riverside Park will be great enjoyment for everyone. I know the Pops Band will be there, so it'll be a lot of fun. fun, and I believe the fireworks are scheduled to go at 9 p.m. Of course, weather permitting, which we'll hope for the best. I have a question of the administration, if there's any information about the splash spray ground, as we call it, at Medal of Honor Park. Is it still shut down to everyone's knowledge? I hadn't heard otherwise.
I know that there was an issue with the pump, I believe, and I know that I talked to the contractor who I believe was making that repair. I don't know if it's been completed yet.
Okay, because it was shut down last week, I believe, midweek, so I just haven't heard any timeline. But people will want to know, especially this weekend, if it's worth them going out to it, if it's up and running.
Yeah, I'll
So,
check and see
appreciate
what the
that.
status is, and we'll let you know.
All right, thank you so much. Okay. That's it.
Ms. Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to start by commending Public Works, Public Services for some of their efforts recently. One is along Ziegler Boulevard, where the widening project is underway. A lot of these big barrels sit out on Ziegler, and our mowing folks have done a terrific job of trying to get around those things and mow Ziegler and keep it under control during the summer months. So just a big thank you to them for all that they've been doing. And also, I received an email, and I always like to pass along the compliments, and it came in this morning, from a gentleman who had contacted me during all of this bad weather that we've had recently, and he was complaining about the ditch in his yard was clogged up. And of course, with all the rain, it was just getting worse. So we called 311, put in the request, and then he contacted me back and said he had been called by someone at 311, and the very next day, someone showed up and they started digging out the ditch. And he sent some before and after photos and was just commending everybody for the great job. So again, I just like to pass along the thanks when they come in, because our folks do such a great job and working under some pretty awful conditions while we've had all this bad weather and all of the flooding issues that I know that they have been dealing with. Coming up July 6th is my Christmas in July meeting. We're having that at the Mobile Museum of Art, as we normally do for Christmas. The last time we were able to do this was the Christmas meeting of 2019. So we are again bringing in gifts for the residents at Wilmer Hall, as we normally do. We'll be recognizing our first responders, as well as community groups, HOAs, community action groups, and neighborhood leaders. And then our guest speakers will be our guest speakers who were invited, and hopefully they'll be able to attend. Our Mayor Stimson, Commissioner Connie Hudson, Director Batiste, Shonda Smith with Parks and Rec. We'll have representatives there from Engineering and Public Works as well. So look forward to this every year. It's a great time for people in the community to fellowship with one another, to meet our first responders, and get an overview of what's happening in the district. So just everyone is invited to come. You should have already received your postcards in the mail. So we just look forward to having everybody at the Mobile Museum of Art. Starts at 6 o'clock, and food will be served. So again, it's a normal Christmas meeting. That's why we're calling it Christmas in July. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to start off by wishing everybody, all our citizens, a happy 4th of July. And like Councilman Davis, I would like to allude to the birthday of this nation. If you read the history books, it's going to talk about Paul Revere. As a matter of fact, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a poem, "Listen, my children, and you should hear the midnight ride of Paul Revere." Paul Revere was not riding toward the British. He was riding away from the British. He was an alarmist, telling them that the redcoats are coming. Otherwise, you better get up out of here, because they're heading your way. Not Crispus Attucks. He was not running from the redcoats. The first gunshot, the first gun that fired on the redcoats, came from Crispus Attucks, an African American. He was not on his horse running the other way. He was running into the face of the enemy. Now they shot him down. He didn't get anywhere, but he fired the first shot. He is not in the history books. I just want to say that the real history will tell you the first person who died for the freedom of America from England was an African-American, Paul Revere. If you Google him, you'll find him. If you go get your history books, I am so sorry. Paul probably is not there. Anyway, tonight I will be holding a District 1 Trinity Garden community meeting. Again, I say tonight at the Dodge Community Center in Trinity Garden. That meeting is going to start at 6 o'clock. Asking all of the citizens in the Trinity Gardens area to meet me there. We're going to have lots of good information for you about jobs training, about CIP, about what we plan to do, what we have done, and I want to hear from you. It's your time to come. Somebody was writing, somebody wrote a piece on Facebook a couple of days ago saying, you won't find Fred Richardson nowhere in his district. This person probably living on Mars. Evidently, they're not on planet Earth if they've gone that far out. Mr. President, I would like to close my comment out with a presentation, and I would like to ask my staff to come and start the presentation, and I will discuss the presentation once it's over. It's a video presentation. Okay, I don't hear any audio. You need to move the microphone. This video is going to depict Fred Richardson driving up to the Sullivan Center, the Sullivan Community and Senior Center. Well, let me see. This is the Thomas Sullivan Community Center. And you can see that workers are already here. We have workers here. And I have been to the Connie Hudson Senior Center. The seniors gather here. This is the Thomas Sullivan Center, but this is where the seniors, on this part of the city, the seniors meet here too. And at the Connie Hudson Center, I just walked in the door. The doors were not locked. I'm going up here to see. We're east of I-65 now, and I want to know whether or not I can walk up here and go in the Thomas Sullivan Center, or whether or not the doors are locked. Okay, I want you to go with me. I'm heading toward the door. And we're just going to give it a test. And I hope these doors are not locked. I hope the people are not locked out. Look and see if I'm going to a fire door. The doors are locked. Lord have mercy on us all. There's two mobiles. Both doors are locked solid at the community center east of I-65. And you can walk in on the other side. This is where Richardson Center now. You see the picture. Bye-bye. Thank you. When I talked about me going to the Hudson Center and the Sullivan Center last week, I was through with that. And I was, it came from so many complaints I received where children and parents couldn't couldn't get in the center. The center was locked. And when kids got up there, was charging them $50 to go in if they had to go back. I wanted to find out for myself whether or not the doors were locked. I first went to the senior center, the Hudson Regional Senior Center. Doors were not locked. It's a model center. I recommend all centers will operate just like that center. But then I drove east to the Sullivan Center. As you can see, the doors were locked. Last week, City Attorney Ricardo Woods controverted my statement by throwing in there something about the fire door. Maybe I was trying to go into a door that was locked, the fire door. Well, 2 reporters picked that up from Lanyap and AL.com, and they went statewide, saying that Councilman Richardson evidently went to the wrong door. He went to a fire door, and that was the reason he couldn't get in. He went to the fire door. They wouldn't even mention no fire door had it not been mentioned first here. Trying to divert the attention from the truth that the front door was locked. There was no need to even mention no fire. Did you see any smoke? Why they going to no fire door? The fire door is from the inside. In case of fire, you go out the fire door. It's almost like saying, Fred Richardson is so stupid. He drove up there. He passed those double doors, and he took his stupid self around to a fire door trying to get in. Did you see what Fred Richardson did? They went with all of that. Instead of saying, open the door, Mr. Mayor, and let everybody in. Fred Richardson shouldn't be going to no center. Treat them all the same. Open up all the doors. Let the children in. They had programs going on at the senior citizen. You shouldn't even open up a center and you don't have programs for the kids. Programs ought to be going on year-round in every one of those centers, senior, community, whatever. If the door is open, you got staff there. They're not there just to sit up there and look. They ought to have some sort of programs going on. If you don't have enough money for it, then ask the council to appropriate more money for it. This business, we got $64 million in reserve, another $58 million we can't furnish programs for these little kids. Those reporters are not here. I want them to know what the truth is, and I want you to publish what the truth is, and not some sort of lie, conversion. Thank you, Mr. President. I hope I'm through with that. But if they come out with a new lie, I'm coming out with the truth again.
Mr. President.
Mr. Davis, you had your announcement.
I know, but I want to counter a misstatement that Mr. Richardson made.
Mr. Davis.
He said that Paul Revere was running away from the Redcoats.
Oh.
That's not true. Paul Revere was actually running out to notify the militiamen in Lexington and Concord that the Redcoats were headed out there to grab the guns in the arsenal. He went out there to let them know. And then the militiamen made their historic stands at Lexington and Concord. So he was not running away. He was alerting the militiamen who then fought the historic battle where they sent the Redcoats back to Boston.
There is
with
no
their tails between their legs.
Mr. President, there is no records in the annals of history that Paul Revere ever fired a shot at anybody. We don't even know whether he had a gun. Only thing I'm saying, history is giving record to a person riding a horse, but the man who fired the first shot didn't make the book.
All right. Let's appreciate both of them, both Crispus Attucks and Paul Revere. And I'm glad they won. so that we might have this great country that allows us to have such a democracy that two men such as Mr. Daves and Mr. Richardson can sit on this panel. That's good.
But now we agree on that.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
The properly moved to second that we would adjourn. All in favor?